start thinking about these things, start taking climate change seriously, and see where you can make a small little move, take a small little action. Could be changing stuff inside your business, which will in fact make you more money also, ironically.
Why are all the other climate scientists around the world not coming to the same conclusion as perhaps you are?
It's very straightforward. If you don't trust biology, you're going to trust mining.
I suspect you're an optimist. What about speaking to policymakers? Only last week you met Gates, a few days ago, and then last week was Modi. What do you go and talk to them about? I mean, do you share your angst with them, and what do they say?
I with Gates, we had more questions. I had more questions than answers. I think with Gates, I was trying to more figure with this whole meaning of life question, right? So like what gets, he's been running this for so long, and like beyond a point, I'm sure money didn't bring anything incrementally. So I usually ask this question to a lot of successful businessmen, saying, what gets you up every morning and keep going at it? And because I'm trying to find like the answer, in the sense, like how all these businessmen's mental framework is on this.
And what have you found?
He said that from 2000 onwards, which is maybe when he was 43, 44, is when he started philanthropy, right? As in I think he cut his first check for $20 or $30 million for malaria, and I think he's very similar, in the sense he's found meaning in life, maybe doing some of that work. But he's also a very sharp businessman, so I think he's also found ways to marry some of these philanthropic investments to his business, in the sense very inspirational to meet people who have actually kind of run the course of their listening to their journey. With Prime Minister was I can't really ask questions. I was just as shocked with how much he knew about our business and the industry. And one credit to the government for sure is the push for entrepreneurship, right? From the Prime Minister to all the ministry. They are doing whatever to help more entrepreneurs in the country. And they kind of understand that, eventually inclusive growth will happen only if there are more entrepreneurs in this country, right? A lot of MSMEs and SMBs, and not more big techs, right? As in, you need to find a way to create value across the board.
What about other NGOs? So Gates has been doing this for many years. So has the Tatas have been, Ambanis and the Infosys people, Nilkanis. All these people have been doing this for a while. How do you talk to them in terms of coordinating your efforts?
Yeah. So I think Samir is a better person for this, because I have more questions than answers. So when I get to interact with them, I'm generally thinking of how they're thinking about it. Just picking the cause itself. As in, like, this is something we came together on, which is climate change and like creating local entrepreneurship. Like, how do they think about, because the world's got so many problems, right? As in, right, from health to poverty to education to climate change to everything else. So yes, I generally have a lot of questions. Maybe Samir, you can.
Yeah. So we started looking at climate differently early, and we realized it intersected with the work that each of them has been doing already in health, in education, and livelihoods, especially in livelihoods. Because you can't solve climate without actually touching upon these, and you're better off solving climate through these because it stays solved. It's in people's own self-interest to solve livelihoods. You just want to bias it towards climate. You want to bias it towards biodiversity. Right. Like even on the
so they have been training people or educating people about getting a livelihood, and you're saying, can we bias them towards something that is more sustainable?
Yeah, and the conversation has been happening.
Right.
You're seeing more and more people who are looking at the intersection of health and climate. That's a very big one. Livelihoods and climate. So everybody who was not thinking of themselves as people solving climate change, I think has started to ask that question today. That's already happening. All the big philanthropies, a lot of the CSR folks are already thinking like that. Right? Even the government is starting to ask that question, the intersect between, there's focus on climate smart agriculture, for instance. Right? So this intersection is coming into play in very, very big ways. And we've been part of these discussions from the word go, because these were the dumb questions we went in with. Right? We started asking.
But why did they not pick climate change?
Well, I think it was the legacy of the narrative from the past, framed across the world around carbon and coal and so on and so forth. And those are important conversations, but they are not what changes the mainstream behavior, the mainstream economics, the idea of local entrepreneurship around which is relevant to your bioregion and so on and so forth.
From what I understand, having gone through the list of companies that you've made grants to, they're quite innovative solutions, whether it's agriculture, dairy, or data, or all of these things. That's the supply side, the way I see it.
Sure.
How do you influence the demand side? How do you get consumers of these products to change their behavior?
There's a nice answer to it, and there's a morbid answer to it.
Right? Okay. Let's hear both.
I think the nice answer to it is that there is, for instance, for millets, there is growing awareness. Places like Bangalore are already ahead on the curve. Odisha has already created, PDS enablement, state procurement, state support for millets, and it's already mainstream there in many ways. Other states are considering this. We were talking to folks doing mead out of honey, and they were talking about mainstreaming honey as well, right? Like a push for that. You do see a lot of pockets of organic produce, nature-friendly produce popping up all over the city now. So I think there's increasing consumer awareness. People are starting to talk about food miles. It's still early days. But I think the big driver for this is the stress on the supply chains. Right? Europe's faced it a couple of times, 2 years in a row now.
Right.
India's faced it through the floods and all of that. And when your supply chain snaps, what are you left with?
Right. So nothing like a good disaster to nudge people into action.
To remind people that it's necessary to look at your surroundings. Yes.
I think humanity's only ever advanced one disaster at a time.
Yeah.
Right.
India did ban the export of wheat briefly.
Right.
When wheat production went down last year.
Right.
So I do think those responses will be part of this realization.
Right. So influencing the PDS system for supply, letting disasters sort of teach them a lesson. But do you think?
I don't think we are letting disasters.
So it's happening.
We're hoping the former happens much more than the latter.
But is there a more positive action you could do in terms of using influencers? I mean, we know of influencers in the finance field, but for example, I don't know, pick a Shah Rukh Khan or Deepika Padukone to kind of go well, I don't know how well known you are outside financial services, but just to know. No, but I'm just thinking in terms of like seriously. I mean, if Amitabh Bachchan can be sort of co-opted into talking about TB, then there are sort of conversations you can get. So cricket and Bollywood are the two things that will influence India, right? That's. He's making a face.
Yes, can I share my
please do.
Pessimistic view? I think, yes, influential people need to talk about it. But like Samir says, unless there's an ecosystem there, unless the systems are in place, that's just wasted message. You can talk about millets every day, but if you can't procure millets at a healthy price and eat it, then it's pointless. So it might be premature to just go talk about all of this stuff, this organic. I mean, it's become a lifestyle thing. And the reality is that most people out there cannot afford to consume organically produced things because it's so expensive. So unless you solve those problems, it's too premature to do big bang campaigns. That's my view. And sorry, I also wanted to add, I had a comment on the previous question you had about large philanthropic organizations. And you did mention some really large organizations, some of the biggest in the world. But yes, large philanthropic organizations have a role to play. Everybody has a role to play. I don't know if Rainmatter, we see ourselves as a large philanthropic organization. Yes, we have the capital that automatically, if you look at the metric, it makes us so. But the way we think, the way we function, I think is unlike any of the large organizations you mentioned. Our goals, how we really are on the ground, how we frame, look at it, etc. I think it's very grassroots. And I think these problems really require a lot of grassroots thinking, that philosophy. And at the end of the day, we don't just give out grants. We have this thesis and we're trying to bring a lot of people on board. But at the end of the day, the actual work that is happening out there, these are not large philanthropic organizations. These are all individuals, tiny groups, tiny organizations. They are the people on the ground. These are the groups on the ground who've been working in this space forever. So we only ever really talk about the big things done by big foundations. Fair enough. I mean, they're doing big things. But this is something that always bugs me. The actual work happens at the hands of people who are never really spoken about. So maybe here, at least in Rainmatter's context, we should keep stressing that we are just there as an enabler because we happen to have the resources, but we are only doing a tiny bit. The vast amounts of ecosystem work, meaningful work is being done by ordinary people who don't really have any resources or philanthropic connections with really large global foundations.
But that was the point, that because you've taken on such a big topic, climate change, is it not more productive to talk to, say, the Water Group at the World Bank to figure out what they have done already in terms of research and work, and then coordinate your efforts with that, or Gates in terms of health, or whoever? So that was precisely the question, that what you've chosen to do is so big. How can you do it on your own? That was the crux of the question.
I'll just bring in an example to what Kay was describing, and it also addresses the consumption question you had earlier. So there's this 1,000 farmer FPO we came across 2 hours from Lucknow last week, who started growing mushrooms a while ago and started diversifying overall. So they have their own edible oil seeds. So this is a region that would have considered mushrooms non-vegetarian food even a decade ago, but they're all consuming mushroom now. And they are more than self-sufficient on edible oil, which is not what you can say for the whole country right now. They're a 70% importer of edible oil. So the habits changed, and it changed at 1,000 farmer scale in that region. And that's a significant blip in the radar there.
Supply-based. Because they grew mushroom, therefore people started consuming it.
Well, it's themselves. Right? So 1,000 such experiments will start to add up. To what he was saying, it's going to come from the point it's done at. Right? From the very local, from the very small scale. But what you need to, from the strategic point of view, from the World Bank point of view, from the government's point of view, is facilitate, enable a lot of this to happen. Which is what our economy is. It's a lot of tiny actions adding up to what we call climate change now. So can we get it to add up to the reverse of that?
And I guess from a platform, any two-sided platform, you have to solve for the supply first, and then the demand. Right? But the only thing is that if you are funding companies to create millet-based products, if they don't find any buyers, will they not give up? Just no?
Yeah, I mean, you have to tackle this from all angles.
That's what I'm saying. It needs to be both. That's exactly what I was saying about how will you influence demand? And I guess then leads to the question of, and then people will ask, okay, well, you're asking us to sacrifice something. So I was just reading about, again, Collaborative Fund, which is the fund that Morgan Housel works for. They've set up, I think it's Collab SOS. So they're also tackling climate change. But their philosophy is, we are going to fund companies that are coming up with innovative solutions without asking customers to sacrifice their lifestyle. That was a big thing that they're very particular about. Whereas, I don't know if that's the case here.
So we have two sides of the foundation, right? As in, one is where everything Samir is doing and Samir and the team is doing. And the other side, we also believe that for-profit companies can also create a difference, right? And that's where we're supporting Akshay Kalpa or Organic Mandya or Zero Circle, right? As in, so we're taking both the approaches. It's not that we're saying we'll not go the for-profit route. We're taking that and we're taking this. So it's kind of diversifies the risk for us, saying. And also the thing about our capital is one of the things that we have realized in the for-profit space, where money is raised by impact funds, like what you just mentioned, they're chasing returns, right? There is no, if you raise money from LPs promising returns, you have to generate them a return, right? Now, if you prioritize return over impact, it's not really an impact fund, right? And that's where our capital really comes with no obligation, right? We are chasing really only impact. Even in Rainmatter FinTech, where we have partnered with like 30 or 40 FinTech startups now, we've never once asked them what happened to our capital, right? The question always is, how many people are you impacting?